Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day. This here, live in effect, is your neighborhood Sensei Fouché. And in this time of spiritual warfare, because that warfare is never ending. So in this time of spiritual warfare, I'ma strongly suggest, because a lot of folks don't like being told what to do. True. So again, I am going to implore for all of you beautiful, self-worthy, loving individuals to stay woke. But in the process, take any meditative steps and procedures necessary in order to relax. And always be prepared to take those notes. Let's give sponsorship shout outs first. WWE, this wonderful t-shirt with an inspirational message in regards to income and profit. For me, my mind state is always thinking, I am in the black as opposed to in the red. You know what I'm saying? Like, my flow should be green instead of red. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to WWE for this beautifully made product and personal message, for myself. And it may relate to other people, you know what I'm saying? But you do you, and this is me. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, shout out to Mr. J.F. Winter of Nasty Noise Music Productions. N.N.M.P. is the acronym. Look him up on any platform of your choice. You know what I'm saying? All instrumentals that are played in the background on this platform are provided by NNMP, Nasty Noise Music Productions. Composer, producer, Mr. J.F. Winter. So I feel honored. Thank you. And let's move forward. You know what I'm saying? I have been covering in my recent novel of choice, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. How to heal from distant, rejecting, or self-involved parents. Was your parent difficult, immature, or emotionally unavailable? If you grew up with an emotionally immature, unavailable, or selfish parent, you may have lingering feelings of anger, loneliness, betrayal, or abandonment. You may recall your childhood as a time when your emotional needs were not met, when your feelings were dismissed, or when you took on adult levels of responsibility in an effort to compensate for your parents' behavior. These wounds can be healed, and you can move forward in your life. I did. And that's before I picked up this book and itemized through it about 5-6 times. Any of these books that I am covering in now moment, I have researched through and have read, also itemized and highlight specific sections. I have read this book 6 times. This book for me is more than just the label of parents, because parents is just a specific title of personal person for you. So this is more about immature people and how immature adults guide notable, and because of the limit of growth, immature minded children who wind up eventually becoming immature adults because they are misled and misguided by immature seniors, guardians, parents. And these are your coworkers, people that you have some form of business dealing with, people that you have to commute alongside. They say, what's wrong with the children? I'm like, man, it's what's wrong with the adults. That's the problem. Because when you don't have the right guidance, then you just basically follow lead. You know what I'm saying? They say monkey see, monkey do. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't have your mentality in order, there is limited probability in your success in guiding or help guide someone else to the beginning of being able to process in moving through adult life. We are right now about to cover into chapter 2. Chapter 1 was how emotionally immature parents affect their adult children's lives. In second chapter, we are going to cover recognizing the emotionally immature parent. And this is not hard at all, because we complain about all of these other people alongside of us in some form of fashion during our daily interactions that give us some form of displeasure or dis-ease. But to be most realistic, how do you resonate with other people and how you move and relate within yourself? Are you truly at a mature level of thinking and processing to where you can minimize having some form of dissatisfied feeling from the effect of someone else's action? If you have a level of maturity within yourself, whatever immature situation someone else creates shouldn't give you the most extreme rage or anger. If you have a level of control and awareness about yourself, I always say, when you are honest with yourself primarily, it is way easier for you to not only be empathetic, but also understanding into the more probable reasoning as to why someone else is in the state of being or existing. Because they're not being. Into being, you are actually in true fulfillment. But in simple existing, you will understand more probable or most probable the path of what led them to that feeling of displeasure or continuing angst. So let's start to get into chapter, because I don't want to spend too much time fumbling through the opening monologue to introduce the main subject of topic we're going to be covering. So again, chapter 2, recognizing the emotionally immature parent. Let me take a sip of water and clear my throat. Most signs of emotional immaturity are beyond a person's conscious control, and most emotionally immature parents/people have no awareness of how they've affected their children. They are so internalized that to have empathy is very minimal in their processing. They highly process the need for sympathy more than giving the necessary attention of empathy. Fortunately, as adults, we have the ability and independence, supposedly, you should hope, to assess whether our parents can really give us the care and understanding we desire. And that is if you are in a mature state of understanding, then you should be able to differentiate whether someone else is equipped and has the skills to fulfill the unilateral and interrelated understanding of empathy. To judge this objectively, it's important to understand not just your parents' superficial behavioral characteristics, but also their underlying emotional framework. Once you understand these deeper traits and learn what to expect from your parents and how to label their behaviors, you're far less likely to be caught unaware by their limitations. So, in simple translation, as you probably already do understand, if you eliminate the title of parent and just observe them as people, no different than anyone you would interrelate with on a peer level, within working or commuting, then the honest, aware assessment would tell you exactly who they are. When you take out the emotion, then the logic settles into what is most probable in making complete sense. The goal is for you to gain the self-confidence that comes from knowing the truth of your own story, right? I was saying that you got to be honest within yourself, and when you are honest within yourself and your level or lack of maturity, then you become to be more aware and open. Less in judgment and more in empathy. You aren't betraying your parents by seeing them accurately. Thinking about them objectively can't hurt them, but it can help you. The The effects can range from mild to severe depending on the parents' level of immaturity. And I'm going to just roll through because I know I was covering a lot of this in general. Exchange of simple conversation, trying to connect the dots. So again, the effects can range from mild to severe depending on the parents' level of immaturity, but the net effect is the same. The children feel emotionally unseen and lonely. Thinking about them objectively can't hurt them, but it can help you. I already said that. This erodes their children's sense of their own lovability and can lead to excessive caution about emotional intimacy with others. So, in that recognition, you will be more able to see how you are disconnected from other people, your own children, or just other peers or interrelated people that you happen to pass time with in a daily consistency. Human emotional immaturity has been studied for a long time. However, over the years, it has not lost ground to an increasing focus on symptoms and clinical diagnosis using a medical disease model to quantify behaviors as illnesses suitable for insurance reimbursement. But in terms of a deep understanding of people, assessing emotional immaturity is often far more usual. There's a difference between a pattern of emotional immaturity and a temporary emotional regression. Anyone can briefly lose emotional control or become impulsiveness when tired or stressed, right? However, when a person has a personality pattern of emotional immaturity, certain behaviors show up repeatedly. Let me hold note right there. So basically, anyone will get immediately angry or impulsive. That was the word I was looking for primarily. Impulsively, as a human, you will have a reaction to a situation. If it is continued or long-standing, then that becomes a higher or highest connection to immaturity. And I know I was stating that. So if things happen in repeated patterns in continuous successions, then that's more you. The other person, they have to account for their own misfortune of feelings. But we're talking about you. You know what I'm saying? So if this is a continuous, long-standing pattern, that's a you problem more than it is a them problem. They have to figure out their own you in their regard. But you focus on your you. You know what I'm saying? These behaviors are so automatic and unconscious that people are unaware of doing them. Emotionally immature people don't step back and think about how their behavior impacts others. I said that, right? There's no cringe factor for them. So they seldom apologize or experience regret. Emotional maturity means a person is capable of thinking objectively and conceptually while sustaining deep emotional connections to others. People who are emotionally mature can function independently while also having deep emotional attachments, smoothly incorporating both into their daily life. They are direct about pursuing what they want. No beating around the bush, you know what I'm saying? Just very assertive. Yet do so without exploiting other people. You know what I'm saying? Assertive without manipulation. They've differentiated from their original family relationship sufficiently to build a life of their own. They are not long-term or grown dependents. Basically, grown immature children. They have a well-developed sense of self and can identify and treasure their closest relationships. Emotionally mature people are comfortable and honest about their own feelings and get along well with most other people, except for those highly irrational, immature individuals. Thanks to their well-developed empathy, impulse control, and emotional intelligence, they're interested in other people's inner lives and enjoy opening up and sharing with others in an emotionally intimate way. When there's a problem, they deal with others directly to smooth out differences, not talk behind people's back and be a yellowback, a coward, as I specifically always label. Emotionally mature people cope with stress in a realistic, forward-looking way while consciously processing their thoughts and feelings. They can control their emotions when necessary, anticipate the future, adapt to reality, and use empathy and humor to ease difficult situations and strengthen bonds with others. They enjoy being objective and know themselves well enough to admit their weaknesses. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can admit when you're wrong. You can admit your flaws. You're not trying to cover it up and act like, you're better than someone else. Like, always trying to mock and laugh at someone else at their mistakes, but then you feel very personal and attacked when someone mocks and notifies you of your mistakes. You know what I'm saying? You should be able to call out your own flaws and be honest about those before someone else tells you about them. Emotionally immature people, on the other hand, tend to have quite a different set of behavioral, emotional, and mental characteristics. Because these personality characteristics are all interconnected, people who display one are often prone to the others. They just all connect together. It's like dominoes. It's a domino effect. They just all kind of fall together right in line. Emotionally immature people can do very well sometimes, reaching high levels of success and prestige. But when it comes to relationships or emotional decisions, you know what I'm saying, their immaturity becomes evident. And there's someone in the highest level of position in this country right now that I would say specifically falls in line with that just past statements that I just read. But let's move forward because I don't want to get stuck into political ideology and opinion. They are either rigid or impulsive and try to cope with reality by narrowing it down to something manageable. So you can have people in high level positions, but they're just basically entitled. You know what I'm saying? And through that entitlement, they've never really learned how to share, how to interrelate with others. So, everything is, all about them. They're very selfish. Emotionally immature people can do very well, and I know I just read all of that, so let's move forward. Once they form an opinion, their minds are closed. There's one right answer, and they can become very defensive and humorless when people have other ideas. And again, the person holding the highest level of authority within these this land that I stay at in the United States of America, as we probably already know, holds true to these just prior read statements. Emotionally immature people don't deal with stress well. Their responses are reactive and stereotyped. Instead of assessing the situation and anticipating the future, they use coping mechanisms that deny, distort, or replace reality. They have trouble admitting mistakes and instead discount the facts and blame others. Regulating emotions is difficult for them, and they often overreact. Once they get upset, it's hard for them to calm down, and they expect other people to soothe them by doing what they want. They often seek comfort in intoxicants or medication. And I'm just going to call it out, you know what I'm saying? Because Donald John Trump was just hanging out with Elon Musk. And we'll just leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? And anyone that's really deep into the political structure of what's going on within this country right now could go deeper into understanding exactly what I'm talking about. And you could read or follow from the beginning of this chapter conversation to hold this valid. Young children are ruled by feelings, whereas adults consider possible consequences. As we mature, we learn that what feels good isn't always the best thing to do. Among emotionally immature people, however, the childhood instinct to do what feels good never really changes. You know what I'm saying? If you are growing up in an immature environment, you know what I'm saying? Like, those instincts follow from your childhood into your adulthood. You know what I'm saying? So you basically operate in an adult body with a child mind and childlike emotions and reactions. If you're a mature person and think before you act, you might find it hard to imagine living by what feels good in the moment. Emotionally immature people assess situations in a subjective way, not objectively. They don't do much dispassionate analysis. When they interpret situations, how they are feeling is more important than what is actually happening. What is true doesn't matter nearly as much as what feels true. Trying to get a subjectively oriented person to be objective about anything is an exercise in futility. Facts, logic, history all fall on deaf ears when the emotionally immature are concerned. Emotionally immature people are annoyed by other people's differing thoughts and opinions, believing everyone should see things their way. Right? Donald John Trump? The idea that other people are entitled to their own point of view is beyond them. They may be prone to making social gaffes because they don't have enough awareness of other people's individuality to avoid being offensive. They're only comfortable in role-defined relationships where everyone holds the same beliefs. That's that whole MAGA thing we got going on right now. But relating to people connected closely in your life, how does that define? The quieter, nicer ones are the same, but in a quieter, nicer way. Normal children are egocentric as youngsters, but the self-involvement of emotionally immature adults is more childish than childlike. Unlike children, their egocentrism, their egocentrism, their egocentrism lacks joy and openness. And pardon me for my mispronunciation. Emotionally immature people are self-preoccupied in an obsessed way, not with the innocence of a child. And I'm going to read all of this back because I just took a sip of water. So let's go through this again. Normal children are egocentric as youngsters, but the self-involvement of emotionally immature adults is more childish than childlike. Unlike children, the egocentrism lacks joy and openness. Emotionally immature people are self-preoccupied in an obsessed way, not with the innocence of a child. Young children are self-centered because they're still commanded by pure instinct. But emotionally immature adults are commanded by anxiety and insecurity, like wounded people who must keep checking their intactness. They live in a perpetual state of insecurity, fearing that they'll be exposed as bad, inadequate, unlovable. They keep their defenses so high, other people can't get close enough to threaten their shaky sense of self-worth. And I had a little gas in my chest, so pardon me. Before you start feeling too sorry for them, keep in mind that their defenses work seamlessly to keep these underlying anxieties below the level of awareness. They would never see themselves as being insecure or defensive. Anxious self-preoccupation is a quality all emotionally immature people share. They're constantly monitoring whether their needs are being met or whether something has offended them. Their self-esteem rises or falls depending on how others react to them. They can't stand to be criticized, so they minimize their mistakes. Because their self-involvement is all-consuming, other people's feelings are eclipsed by their needs. Terms like self-absorbed and narcissistic make it sound as if these people enjoy thinking about themselves all the time, but they really have no choice in the matter. They have fundamental doubts about their core worth as human beings. They are profoundly self-involved because their development was stunted by anxiety during childhood. In this way, their egocentrism is more like the self-preoccupation of someone with a chronic back condition or chronic pain condition, rather than someone who can't get enough of himself or herself. Emotionally immature people are highly self-referential, meaning that in any interaction, all roads lead back to them. However, they aren't self-reflective. Their focus on themselves isn't about gaining insight or self-understanding. It's about being the center of attention. As you talk to them, self-referential people will turn whatever you say back to one of their own experiences. An example would be a mother listening to her daughter describe a relationship crisis and using it as a springboard to talk about her own divorce. Another example would be parents who upstage their child's victory with recollections of their own accomplishments. Those who are more socially skilled might listen more politely, but you still won't hold their interest. They may not overtly change the subject, but they won't ask follow-up questions or express curiosity about the details of your experience. They're more likely to bring the conversation to a close with a pleasant comment that effectively ends it, such as, "That's wonderful, dear. I know you had a good time." Because they lack self-reflection, emotional immature people don't consider their role in the problem. They don't assess their behavior or question their motives. If they cause the problem, they dismiss it by saying they didn't intend to hurt you. After all, you can't blame them for something they didn't mean to do, right? In this way, their egocentric focus remains on their intention, not the impact on you. Like children, emotionally immature people usually end up being the center of attention. In groups, the most emotional immature person often dominates the group's time and energy. If other people allow it, all the group's attention will go to that person. And once this happens, it's hard to redirect the group's focus. If anyone else is going to get a chance to be heard, someone will have to force an abrupt transition, something many people aren't willing to do. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't want to be rude like the person that is trying to dominate the environment. You may wonder whether these people are just being extroverted. They aren't. The difference is that most extroverts easily follow a change of topic because extroverts crave interaction, not just an audience. They're interested and receptive when others participate. Extroverts Extroverts do like to talk, but not with the purpose of shutting everyone else down. They like to be interrelated. You know what I'm saying? Not independent. That's what I'm saying. That whole independent thing, that's a false intermediate between the difference of being a dependent and being an interdependent. But let's move forward. Role reversal is a hallmark of emotionally immature parenting. In this case, the parent relates to the child as if the child were the parent, right? I know a lot of you folks have been through this situation, or you're probably this parent going through it right now. You know what I'm saying? You trying to talk to the children like they on your level and they're not. And then you wonder why you got these problems, you know what I'm saying? Or you're talking to them on their level. You know what I'm saying? And then that's another problem. These parents may reverse roles and expect their child to be their confidant, even for adult matters. Parents who discuss their marriage problems with their children are an example of this kind of reversal. Other times, parents might expect their children to praise them and be happy for them, just as a child might expect from a parent. This role reversal. Like, look at me, I have like a new boyfriend and, isn't that cool? You know what I'm saying? And this is like a grown mother, an example of a grown mother speaking to, let's say, her middle school child or, early high school child. Impaired empathy is a central characteristic of emotionally immature people, as is avoidance of emotional sharing and intimacy. Being out of touch with their own deeper feelings, they're strikingly blind to how they make other people feel. Empathy isn't just a social nicety like being tactful. It's a necessity for true emotional intimacy. You can't have a deep relationship without it. The highest form of empathy requires an effort of imagination, which has been called mentalization, meaning the ability to imagine that other people have their own unique minds and thought processes. Developmental psychologists refer to this as having a theory of mind. Acquiring this ability is an important developmental milestone for children. Mentalizing allows you to grasp other people's viewpoints and overall inner experience because you realize they have a mind of their own, different from yours. Good parents are excellent at empathizing and mentalizing. Their interest in their child's mind makes the child feel seen and understood. It's also an indispensable characteristic for leadership in business, the military, or any situation where understanding and predicting the motives of others is central. Empathy is a bedrock component of emotional intelligence. And I've been mentioning that word more than a few times in this conversation, is empathy, which is essential to social and occupational success as well. Empathy involves, or true empathy involves more than knowing what people feel. It also entails the ability to resonate with those feelings. For example, sociopaths may do an excellent job of reading a person's emotional vulnerabilities, but without the ability to resonate with other person's feelings, knowledge of those feelings becomes a tool for predation, not connection. This casts light on a curious fact about emotionally immature people. In spite of not resonating empathetically, they are often quite canny when it comes to reading other people's intentions and feelings. However, they don't use their understanding of people to foster emotional intimacy. Instead, their empathy operates at an instinctual or superficially sentimental level. So again, however, they don't use their understanding of people to foster emotional intimacy. Instead, their empathy operates at an instinctual or superficially sentimental level. You may feel sized up, but not felt for. Lack of resonant empathy suggests a lack of self-development. For parents to accurately imagine what their children are feeling, they need to have enough self-development to be aware of their own emotions. If they haven't developed their own emotional self-awareness, they can't resonate with how others, including their own children, might feel inside. And we are going to end our conversation right there. And in our next moment, we are going to most probably, finish chapter 2. So I look forward to that moment. And until that moment, really think deeply into a lot of the information and the references that was expressed and read within chapter today. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to hold too much more time because there are other times and other moments to continue within the important context of this conversation. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to wish all of you the most well progress moving forward, and in the next moment you hopefully will have grown to a heightened level above this moment in now time. So this is your neighborhood sensei Fouché, and again I am strongly suggesting, because a lot of folks don't like being told what to do, and that's true. So again, we are going to emphatically implore for all of you wonderful, beautiful, self-worthy, loving individuals to stay woke, because this spiritual warfare never goes away. You know what I'm saying? So in the process, take all meditative and necessary procedural steps to relax. And always be prepared to take those notes. I wish all of you unity. One, be smooth.